The sun had not risen yet, but the sky already carried a pale gray color, like a tired blanket stretched across the wild frontier. Lyra stood outside her small clay house with a wooden bucket in her hands. Her mother lay inside, weak and burning with fever, unable to move or speak for long. Every day, Lyra had only one job: walk across the dangerous land to collect water before the heat grew strong and the raiders woke. It was a simple task, but it was also deadly. Lyra was small for her age, thin from hunger and too many days without rest. Still, she stepped onto the rocky ground with quiet determination. She had walked this path since she was 9. Now she was 12, and the danger had only grown. Wild beasts hunted the dry fields. Raiders moved like shadows, stealing anything they wanted. No one traveled alone in this land, except Lyra, who had no choice. Every morning felt the same. Sharp stones cut her feet through her worn sandals. Dry wind pushed dust into her eyes. Birds circled in the sky, waiting for something weak to fall. Lyra ignored all of it. Her mother needed water, and without it she would not survive another night. But today, something felt wrong. The path was too quiet. Usually, she heard the distant roar of beasts or the rustle of tall grass shifting in the wind. Today, everything was silent. Even the air felt heavy, like it was watching her. Lyra tightened her grip on the bucket and kept walking. As she walked farther, she passed old ruins half buried in sand. Long ago, a small village stood here, but raiders destroyed it before Lyra was born. Now only broken walls and empty fire pits remained. She always moved fast through this place, because she felt eyes following her from the shadows. Lyra reached the ridge overlooking the dry riverbed. This used to be a flowing river, full of clear water. Now it was nothing but cracked mud and sharp rocks, except for one deep hollow where a small pool still formed after rare rains. That pool was the only source of water her family had left. She climbed down carefully, sliding on loose stones. Her heart beat faster. She had always felt unsafe here, but today the air felt tense, almost like the land was holding its breath. She crouched beside the small pool, set her bucket down, and filled it slowly, making sure not to waste a single drop. As she lifted the bucket, a loud crunch echoed from behind her. Lyra froze. It was not the wind. It was not an animal she recognized. It sounded like a heavy boot crushing a stone. Her breath caught in her throat. She slowly turned her head. At first, she saw nothing but rocks and broken bushes. Then she noticed something strange: a shadow on the ground, long and unfamiliar. It stretched across the stones like someone was standing behind a boulder. But no one moved. No one spoke. Lyra felt her pulse jump. She had heard stories of raiders using silence to trap their prey. She stepped backward, keeping the bucket close to her chest. If she ran, she might drop the water. If she stayed, she might be caught. Her mind raced with fear. She took one more step, another crunch. This time clearer. Closer. Lyra spun around and saw a figure step out from behind a rock. She gasped. It was not a raider. It was not an animal. It was something she had never seen before. A human. Tall, dusty, wounded, and carrying strange metal gear on his back. His clothes were torn, his arms covered in bruises, and his eyes sharp with exhaustion. Humans were rare in this land, almost like myths. Lyra had heard people say humans were dangerous and wild, but also brave and strong. The stranger looked at her the same way she looked at him, confused and unsure. He raised a hand. Not an attack, but to show he meant no harm. "Are you alone here?" he asked in a tired voice. Before Lyra could answer, a deep growl rolled through the air behind them. The rock shook. Dust lifted. Something massive moved in the shadows of the ridge. The beast had caught their scent. And it was coming. Lyra's hands trembled. The human's eyes narrowed. This morning, she thought she would only fight for water. She did not know she would also fight for her life. And she did not know Her fate had already begun to change. Asterisk. The growl rose from the rocks like a warning from the earth itself. Lyra froze, clutching her bucket of water, her eyes wide with fear. The human stranger did not speak. He only turned his head slightly, listening, as if he already knew what was coming. His breath grew slow and steady, like someone preparing for danger he had faced before. A second growl echoed, deeper and heavier. This one carried weight, the kind of weight that made the ground tremble. Lyra stepped closer to the human without thinking. She did not trust him, but she feared what was hiding in the shadows even more. The stranger finally spoke, his voice calm but serious. "Move behind me." Lyra hesitated. She had never taken orders from a human. She had never even met one. But something in his tone felt solid and protective, not cruel. She stepped behind him just as a giant shape emerged from the ridge above them. It was a frontier beast, one of the most feared creatures in the wild lands. Its body was large and thick with muscle, covered in cracked scales that looked like armor. Its eyes shone a faint yellow, locked on Lyra, drawn by her scent and the water she carried. Its jaw opened slowly, revealing long black fangs. Lyra's knees weakened. She had seen dead beasts before, but never one alive and hunting her. The stranger reached for the metal rod strapped to his back. It was a simple tool, something she did not recognize. It looked too old and too plain to be a real weapon. But the human held it with confidence, like it was enough to face anything in this land. The beast roared and leaped down the rocks toward them. Lyra let out a small cry and stumbled backward. The human moved forward instead. His steps were slow but sure, like he had fought such creatures before and lived to tell the tale. The beast charged. The human did not run. He waited until it was only a few steps away. Then he swung the metal rod with all his strength. The sound rang through the dry air like a crack of thunder. The rod struck the beast's snout, knocking its head sideways, but the beast did not fall. It only grew angrier. It snapped its jaws forward, trying to bite the human's arm. The stranger jumped back just in time. Dust flew around his feet. He swung again, this time hitting the beast across its eye. The creature roared and shook its head violently. Lyra watched, frozen with terror, as the two fought. She had never seen anyone stand against a frontier beast alone. Humans were said to be strong, but she had never imagined this kind of strength. The stranger fought with speed and skill, even though he looked tired and wounded. The beast lunged at him again. This time, it caught his leg with a sharp claw, tearing into his skin. The human staggered and nearly fell. Lyra gasped, gripping the bucket so tightly her hands hurt. The beast moved in for the kill, and that was when the human did something Lyra did not expect. He dropped the rod, grabbed the beast's horn-like jaw, and pulled with every bit of strength he had left. His muscles strained. His teeth clenched. Dust swirled around them. The beast roared in pain and confusion. The human twisted its head sharply, forcing it toward the rocks. With a final push, he slammed it down. The beast hit the ground with a heavy thud and stopped moving. Silence filled the air. The human stumbled back, shaking. Blood dripped from his leg. His chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. She had never seen anyone fight like that. Not even the strongest raiders. "You killed it," she whispered, her voice trembling. The human wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at her. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said simply. Lyra swallowed hard. "I have no choice." Slowly, the human's expression softened. He glanced at her bucket of water, then at the path she had come from. "How far is your home?" he asked. "Far," she said. "And dangerous?" He nodded. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed to one knee. Lyra stepped forward, panic filling her eyes. "You're hurt." The human tried to stand but could not. He looked up at her with tired eyes. "I'll be fine," he said, though his voice was weak. Lyra looked at the dead beast, at the silent path, at the blood on his leg. She made a choice she had never made before. "I will help you," she said. And in that moment, the wild frontier changed for both of them. Lyra had never helped a stranger before, and certainly not a human. Her people spoke of humans like wild storms, dangerous, powerful, unpredictable. But as she watched the man struggle to stay upright, she saw no storm in him. Only pain, only exhaustion. Only someone who had fought far too many battles alone. "Lean on me," she said softly. The human hesitated. Perhaps he also did not expect help from a small alien girl with thin arms and shaking hands. But he finally nodded. He placed one hand on her shoulder, careful not to crush her under his weight, and slowly stood. His injured leg trembled beneath him, and Lyra could feel his strength slipping away. "You must rest," Lyra said. "Where?" he asked, breathing hard. She looked around the valley. There were no safe houses, no friendly travelers, no walls to hide behind. But she did know of one place. A place she used only when she had no choice. A place raiders usually ignored because they believed it cursed. "There is a cave," she said quietly. "It is not far." The human looked at the sky, then at the horizon where heat shimmered like a ghost. "Lead the way." Lyra picked up her bucket again, determined not to let a single drop spill. She guided him through the rocks, following narrow paths hidden by tall dry grass. Every few steps she glanced behind them. The frontier was never quiet for long. Something always moved in the shadows. Beasts, raiders, or worse things without names. They walked slowly, the human limping heavily. Lyra had to stop twice, letting him catch his breath. His face was pale, and sweat fell from his forehead. She knew he was fighting the pain in silence. Finally, they reached the cliffs where a narrow opening hid itself between two giant stones. Most people would walk past it without noticing. Lyra slipped inside easily. The human lowered his head and followed. Inside, the air grew cool and still. Faint light entered through cracks in the rocks, painting the walls in thin beams of gold. Lyra stepped carefully, listening for the sound she feared most: hissing. The cave was safe only when empty. She exhaled with relief. It was silent. "You can sit here," she said, pointing to a smooth rock near the wall. The human lowered himself with a tired groan. When he touched his leg, fresh blood stained his fingers. Lyra winced. "The wound was deep. You need help," she whispered. "I've had worse," he said. Though his voice cracked, Lyra placed her water bucket beside him. She tore a strip of cloth from her own sleeve. It was rough and old, but clean. The human watched as she dipped the cloth in water and gently pressed it to his wound. He hissed softly from the sting. "You don't have to," he said. "You saved me." She replied simply. The human looked at her for a long moment, as if he had no answer for that. "What is your name?" she finally asked. "Joran," he said. She nodded. "I am Lyra." Joran closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cool cave air ease his breathing. When he spoke again, his voice was calmer. "Why do you walk alone in such danger? Why is a child doing this?" Lyra looked down at her hands. "My mother is sick. She cannot move. If I do not bring water every day, she will die." Joran opened his eyes. "Where is your village?" "There is no village," she whispered. "They left when raiders came. Only my mother and I stayed. She was too weak to travel, and I refused to leave her." Joran's jaw tightened. He stared at the cave floor, anger flickering under the surface, not at her, but at the world she lived in. "No one should face this alone," he murmured. Lyra wanted to agree, but loneliness was all she had ever known. Before she could answer, something outside the cave shifted. A faint sound. A crunch of footsteps. Lyra froze. Joran immediately went silent. He reached for his metal rod, but his hand trembled. Voices followed. Deep, harsh, cruel voices. Raiders. They were close. Lyra's heart hammered in her chest. She grabbed Joran's arm. "Hide," she whispered. Joran tried to stand but stumbled, unable to put weight on his leg. Lyra bit her lip and helped him behind a cluster of rocks deeper in the cave. She crouched beside him, her small body shaking. The raider voices grew louder. "Tracks here," one grunted. "Fresh." Lyra held her breath. "They lead to the stones," another growled. "Check the cave." Joran tightened his grip on his metal rod. Lyra closed her eyes. The raiders' shadows stretched across the cave entrance. One more step, and they would find them. The shadows of the raiders stretched long across the cave floor. Lyra pressed her back against the cold rock, trying not to breathe too loudly. Joran stayed beside her, gripping his metal rod even though his injured leg shook from the effort. One wrong sound, one slip of breath, and both of them would be discovered. A raider's boots scraped against the stone outside. "Check inside," the leader ordered. Lyra's heart dropped. She bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Her hands tightened around her mother's water bucket. If she lost it, her mother would not survive. Joran leaned closer and whispered so softly she almost didn't hear him. "When they step inside, run. I will hold them." Lyra's eyes widened. She shook her head. "You can't. You are hurt. They will kill you." Joran looked forward, his face calm despite the danger. "I'm used to fighting things bigger than me." The raider leader stepped into the entrance. His armor clinked, and his large shape blocked the sunlight behind him. He lifted a torch, lighting the cave with an orange glow. Joran tightened his grip. Lyra held her breath. Another raider followed. Then another. 3 of them. They scanned the cave with sharp eyes. The leader sniffed the air like some kind of animal. "They were here," he growled. "I smell blood." Lyra's heart almost stopped. She looked at Joran. His jaw clenched. His leg was bleeding again. If a drop had fallen. The leader stepped closer to the rocks, hiding them. Joran shifted slowly, ready to launch himself forward despite the pain. Lyra grabbed his arm, shaking her head desperately. Her eyes begged him not to throw his life away. But then, something unexpected happened. A loud roar echoed across the valley outside. A heavy, trembling roar. A beast's roar. The raiders froze. What was that? One muttered. "Another frontier beast," the leader snarled. "It caught our scent. We have no time." The raiders backed out of the cave quickly, curses echoing behind them. Their footsteps faded as they ran, wanting no fight with the beasts that ruled the frontier. Silence returned. Lyra collapsed forward, shaking from relief. Joran let out a slow breath and leaned his head against the wall. "That," he whispered, "was very close." Lyra nodded, her heart still racing. After a long moment, she turned toward him. "Why would you fight for me?" she asked quietly. Joran looked at her, surprised by the question. "Because you needed help." "No one else helps," she said, her voice small. "Not in this land." Joran watched her for a moment. His eyes softened. "Then your land needs changing." Lyra lowered her gaze. She had wanted that her whole life, but wishing never made the frontier safer. She felt the weight of her mother's sickness pressing against her mind. She looked toward the cave entrance, where a thin sliver of light broke through. "I must go home," she said. "My mother needs this water." Joran nodded slowly. "I will go with you." "No," she said quickly. "You can't walk. You will only get hurt more." He braced his hand on the wall and forced himself to stand, even though pain shot across his face. "I am not letting you go alone." Lyra stepped back, shocked. No one had ever insisted on protecting her before. The people in her old village always said, every person must carry their own weight. Helping others was seen as weakness, but this human, this stranger she barely knew, was choosing to help her even with blood running down his leg. Joren steadied himself and gave her a small nod. Let's go. They left the cave carefully, scanning the horizon. The raiders were gone. The beast's roar that saved them belonged to a creature far in the distance. Lyra led the way, taking a hidden route that curved behind tall rocks. As they walked, Joren spoke again. Tell me about your home. Lyra hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But something in his voice felt safe. It is small, she said. Just a one-room house. My father died years ago. My mother worked hard, but sickness took her strength. When the raiders came, everyone ran. They told us to leave her behind because she was weak. I refused. I stayed. Joren listened without interrupting. His eyes were filled with quiet anger, not at her, but at the cruelty she had faced. You're brave, he said. Lyra shook her head. I am just alone. They reached a ridge overlooking her home. Smoke rose from the small chimney. That meant her mother was still alive. Lyra moved faster, running the last stretch. Joren followed, limping but determined. Inside the small house, Lyra's mother lay on a straw bed. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. Joren's expression hardened. He stepped inside, kneeling beside her. She is dying from dehydration, he said. But she can still be saved. He cleaned her lips, helped her drink slowly, and checked her temperature with gentle hands. Lyra watched with wide eyes. She had never seen someone treat her mother like she mattered. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Ian looked at her mother, then at Lyra, because no one should suffer alone. Lyra felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had spent her whole life believing help was something she would never receive, but now a human stranger was changing everything. Night arrived like a silent hunter, crawling over the wild frontier with cold fingers. Lyra lit a small oil lamp and placed it near her mother's bed. The weak glow painted the walls with shaky shadows. Outside, the wind howled against the wooden door. It was a lonely sound, the kind that reminded Lyra how fragile her home truly was. Joren sat near the doorway, sharpening the edge of his metal rod with a stone. His face was tight with focus. His wounded leg was wrapped in cloth, but even in the dim light, Lyra could see dark patches of fresh blood. He was pushing himself too hard, but he refused to rest. You should sleep, she whispered. Joren shook his head. Raiders move at night. They saw our tracks near the cave. They will come. Lyra's heart squeezed. She had hoped the danger had passed. That hope now vanished like smoke. She looked at her mother. The woman finally slept, breathing a little better after the water Joren helped her drink. Lyra could not let anything harm her now. Not when she was finally showing signs of strength. Will they hurt us? She asked. Joren looked her in the eyes. I won't let them. There was something in his voice, something solid and unbreakable. Lyra believed him, even if she did not know why. Hours passed. The moon climbed higher, glowing pale through the cracked window. Lyra tried to stay awake, but exhaustion pulled at her. She laid her head on the table and drifted into a shallow sleep. A sudden snap woke her. A twig breaking. A footstep. Joren stood immediately. Stay behind me, he whispered. Lyra's heart pounded. She grabbed her mother's hand, shaking her awake gently. Mama, stay quiet, please. Her mother's weak eyes opened, fear rising as she heard the sounds outside. More footsteps. Low voices. Torches. Joren moved to the door, lifting his metal rod. His body stood like a shield in the dark. Lyra crouched beside her mother, holding her close. Outside, raiders whispered angrily. "We saw their tracks. They must be inside. Break the door." Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, but fear held her still. Her mother trembled beside her. A heavy fist struck the door. The wood shook. Another hit followed. Then another. Joren braced himself, pushing his shoulder against the door. The raiders pushed harder. "They are trying to force it open," Joren said quietly. "When the door breaks, stay low. Do not run. Do not leave your mother." Lyra swallowed her tears. "They will kill you," she whispered. Joren, single quotes, eyes softened for the first time tonight. "Not without a fight." The door cracked. Splinters flew. A torch flickered through the opening. "Push again." A raider shouted. The door burst inward with a loud crash. 3 raiders rushed inside, their faces half covered with cloth, their weapons sharp. Joren charged. The first raider swung a blade toward his head. Joren ducked and struck the man's knee with his rod. A crack echoed through the room. The raider fell with a howl. The second raider attacked from the side. Joren blocked the blow with his arm, wincing as pain shot through his wound. He fought back, swinging his rod in a quick arc. It hit the raider across the temple. The man stumbled but did not fall. The third raider moved past them and headed straight toward Lyra and her mother. "No!" Lyra screamed. The raider reached for her arm, but before he could grab her, Joren slammed into him from behind, knocking him into the wall. The raiders snarled and grabbed Joren's injured leg. Joren cried out, falling to one knee. The other raiders closed in again. Lyra had never felt so helpless. Her hands shook. Her breath came in short bursts. She wanted to help him, but she had nothing, no weapon, no strength, no skill, but she had courage. She grabbed the oil lamp from the table and smashed it against the ground near the second raider's feet. The flames spread quickly, surprising him. He stumbled back, giving Joren a moment to stand. "Lyra, get back!" Joren shouted. She grabbed her mother's arm and pulled her away from the spreading fire. Joren fought like a storm fast, angry, unstoppable. He struck one raider across the jaw, sending him crashing to the floor. The second raider swung his blade again, but Joren blocked the strike and countered with a brutal hit that knocked the man unconscious. Only one raider remained, the leader. Tall, scarred, cruel. "You shouldn't have interfered, human," he growled. Joren raised his rod. "And you shouldn't have followed us." The leader attacked with fury. Joren blocked, dodged, and pushed through the pain in his leg. Their weapons clashed. Sparks flew. Lyra watched with wide eyes as the fight filled the small house. Finally, Joren delivered a powerful strike to the leader's chest. The raider fell backward and crashed into the burning oil, his clothes catching fire. He screamed and ran outside into the night. Silence followed. Lyra collapsed beside her mother, shaking. Joren dropped his rod, breathing heavily, blood dripping from his leg again. "Are you hurt?" Lyra asked. Joren leaned against the wall, exhausted. "I've had worse," he muttered. But Lyra could see the truth. He was fading, and the real danger was not over. The raider leader had escaped, and he would return. The fire outside slowly died into glowing embers. The small house was left in heavy silence, broken only by Lyra's shaky breathing and Joren's slow, uneven inhales. Smoke drifted through the broken door where the raiders had forced their way inside, and the whole place smelled like danger, blood, and burnt wood. Joren sat with his back against the wall, his chest rising and falling with effort. His injured leg looked worse now, dark with dried blood, torn cloth, and deep cuts that refused to stop bleeding. Lyra rushed to his side, her eyes wide with fear. "You cannot fight anymore," she whispered. "You will die if you do." Joren gave a tired smile. I'm not planning to die today. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of anger and worry. Why do you act like you are strong when you are not? I am strong enough, Joran said, though pain pressed every word. Before Lyra could argue, a weak voice spoke from behind them. Lyra. What happened? Her mother was awake, struggling to sit up. Her eyes flicked from the broken door to Joran's wounds. Fear crossed her face. Oh no, she whispered. You brought danger here. No, Lyra said quickly, taking her mother's hand. Danger followed me. He saved us. Joran tried to stand, but his leg betrayed him. Lyra rushed forward and helped him sit back down. You must rest, her mother said. You cannot fight with wounds like that. I have no choice, Joran replied. The leader escaped. He will return with more men. Lyra's stomach tightened. She already knew it was true. Raiders did not give up until they finished what they started. Joran looked around the small house, studying every crack, every shadow, every path outside. We need to prepare before they come. But how? Lyra asked. Joran wiped sweat from his forehead. Humans survive by using their minds as much as their strength. We cannot defeat many raiders in a direct battle, but we can outsmart them. Lyra listened closely. Something about his voice gave her comfort, even while fear filled her heart. She helped him sit upright and tied fresh strips of cloth around his wounds. You need medicine, she said. I need time, Joran corrected softly. And that we don't have. Her mother coughed weakly. Lyra, you should leave me. Run with him. Save yourself. Lyra shook her head fiercely. No, I will never leave you. Her mother's eyes shined with tears. You are too young to carry all this pain. She is strong, Joran said quietly. Stronger than she knows. Outside, a distant horn echoed across the frontier. Low and long. A raider's signal. Lyra's breath caught. They are coming. Joran nodded. We must move, now. He forced himself to stand, using the wall to stay upright. Lyra helped her mother up, though the woman could barely walk. We cannot run far, Lyra whispered. We don't need to, Joran replied. We need to hide somewhere they won't expect. Lyra thought hard, then remembered something. The dry well. Behind the cliff. Raiders never look there. They think it collapsed years ago. Joran nodded. Good, we go there. He lifted Lyra's mother into his arms. Despite his wounds, he held her steady. Lyra grabbed the water bucket and followed him into the night. They moved through the grass quickly, staying low, listening for every sound. Moonlight spread over the land like cold silver. The wind seemed to hold its breath with them. Voices echoed from the direction of their home. Raiders had already returned. We must hurry. Joran whispered. They reached the dry well, hidden behind a large cracked boulder. Lyra lifted the wooden cover. The well was deep, but not too deep. Inside, a ledge of stone made a small space to sit. It will be tight, Lyra said. It will be safe, Joran answered. He helped her mother inside first. Then he climbed down slowly, wincing as his injured leg fought every movement. Lyra climbed last and pulled the wooden cover back in place. Darkness filled the space. Only faint light from cracks in the boards reached them. Her mother breathed softly. Joran kept his hand on his metal rod. Outside, the raiders' torches glowed like evil fireflies. Their footsteps circled the area. They must be close, one raider snarled. Another kicked a stone. Find them. The leader wants the girl alive. Lyra covered her mouth with shaking hands. Hearing those words made her entire body tremble. Joran leaned close and whispered, Don't fear. Humans don't lose when they choose to protect someone. She looked at him. Even in the dark, his eyes looked steady, strong, like he was holding up the night itself just to keep her safe. The raiders continued searching. One approached the dry well. Lyra's breath stopped. The raider lifted the wooden cover, looked inside, and then laughed. It's empty. Just a dead well. He dropped the cover back. Ian held Lyra's hand, calming her shaking fingers. For now they were safe, but the final fight was still waiting. The night stretched on with heavy silence. Lyra sat in the dry well beside her mother and Joran, her small fingers gripping the stone ledge to keep herself steady. She could hear raiders' voices drifting across the valley, shouts, curses, orders. They were angry. They were searching. They would not stop until they found them. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. And every few minutes she looked toward the wooden cover above their heads. Terrified it would lift again. Joran breathed unevenly beside her. He held his metal rod in one hand, but his grip was weaker now. Pain from his injured leg had traveled through his whole body. Sweat covered his forehead, and his eyes darkened with exhaustion. You cannot fight anymore, Lyra whispered. Joran shook his head slowly. I must. Lyra swallowed hard. Why? Joran looked at her mother, then at Lyra. Because you are worth saving. No one had ever said that to her before. The words felt unreal, like something from a dream. For a long moment, the three of them stayed in silence. Outside, torchlight flickered across the rocks as raiders passed back and forth. Finally, the voices grew distant. After some time, minutes or hours, Lyra could not tell, the night became quiet again. Joran pushed himself up. It's time. Time for what? Lyra asked. To end this, he said. Lyra grabbed his arm. No. They will kill you. Joran placed his hand gently on her shoulder. They will keep hunting you and your mother forever if I do nothing. Her mother weakly shook her head. Joran, you are hurt. You cannot fight them all. I don't need to fight them all, he said. I just need to fight the one who leads them. Lyra stared at him in shock. The leader? But he is the reason they are here, Joran said. If he falls, the others will run. They follow strength, not loyalty. Lyra felt fear rise inside her, burning her throat. But you can barely stand. Please, don't leave us. Joran looked at her with a calm she did not understand. Lyra, humans don't give up easily. Not when someone depends on them. I won't let harm come to you. He climbed out of the well slowly, struggling with each movement. Lyra helped him push the cover aside. Dawn's first light touched the horizon, painting the land with pale gold. The raiders' campfire smoke rose in the distance. Stay hidden, he whispered. Lyra shook her head, tears filling her eyes. Joran, I am scared. He rested a hand on her head. Courage is not living without fear. It is choosing to protect someone even when fear tries to break you. With those words, he limped toward the raiders' camp. Lyra watched him go, her hands shaking. Her mother called her name softly, but Lyra's eyes stayed on the human who walked like a wounded lion toward a pack of wolves. The raider leader stood at the center of the camp, sharpening a curved blade. His face twisted into a cruel smile when he saw Joran approach. You again, he growled. Why not run while you had the chance? Because I don't run, Joran said. Not when people are in danger. The raiders laughed. The leader stepped forward, towering over him. You are alone. You are broken. You can't win. Joran shifted his stance. Maybe, but you won't touch them again. The leader roared and charged. The fight was brutal. Steel clashed against metal. Dust rose around them. Joran blocked a strike, then staggered as the leader slammed a fist into his ribs. Pain shot through his body, but he didn't fall. He swung his rod with everything he had left, hitting the leader's shoulder. The leader growled and grabbed Joran by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Joran's breath caught. His vision dimmed. From the cliff above, Lyra watched in horror. She had followed him despite his warning. She couldn't leave him alone. Joran. she cried. Her voice broke the leader's focus. Joran twisted with the last of his strength and slammed the rod against the leader's jaw. The man stumbled. Joran fell to the ground, gasping. The leader lifted his blade to finish him. Lyra screamed. Joran moved before the blade fell. He drove the rod upward with a fierce shout, striking the leader's chest with a sharp crack. The leader flew back, crashing into the dust. Silence. Then the raiders panicked. The leader is down. Run! One by one, the raiders fled into the frontier, leaving their weapons behind. Lyra ran to Joran, dropping to her knees beside him. Joran, please stay awake. He smiled weakly. See, humans? Don't lose easily. She held his hand tightly. You saved us. He nodded slowly. And now, you are free. Her mother hurried toward them with trembling steps. Tears falling from her eyes, Lyra looked at the rising sun. Then at the man who changed everything. From this day, her fate was no longer shaped by fear. It was shaped by a human who cared. And nothing in the wild frontier would ever be the same again.